Hello out there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a pretty wonderful day. So, the big news in the world of video gaming and Nintendo did, of course, occur earlier this week, a few days ago, during some pretty awkward timing. Nintendo tweeted from their official Japanese Twitter account another message from Furukawa himself, and it's a huge one. It's a really big one, you guys. I know everyone has talked about it at this point. You've probably seen it. You've seen and listened to other people break it down and give their opinions. And I know I'm a couple of days late to this story and to discussing it. And I actually initially wasn't even going to make a video breaking this down. But I figured that ultimately I owed it to you guys to at least toss my 2 cents into the ring, as I like to do here. Because in the grand scheme of things, when you take a look at the world of video games and Nintendo and the future, Switch 2 and all of that exciting stuff, this is actually a pretty big deal. So, here is the big tweet that occurred earlier this week. It says, "This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date." As you can no doubt see, this mirrors the structure and format of the other tweet sent out earlier this year from Furukawa regarding the Switch 2 and the fact that we were going to hear about it and actually see it, I think, confirmed and revealed from Nintendo before the end of their current fiscal year, which, of course, as we all now know, ends in March next year of 2025. By the way, a quick reminder, I am currently trying to cross 30,000 subscribers. I've been doing this YouTube thing for over 11 years now, and that is a milestone I would love to hit sometime over the course of the next year or 2 years. So as you watch this video, if you like what I'm doing, I hope you consider subscribing. Now, of course, it also has to be noted that this announcement in this tweet lines up with Nintendo's most recent quarterly investors meeting, right? So we got updates on current Switch sales, hardware sales, software sales for some of their biggest titles, all the updates around Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and all of that stuff, as well as updates on more recent game sales like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and the Paper Mario remake that came out earlier this year, all of that fun stuff. So we got the sales updates. Everyone loves to take a look at those numbers and dive into them, and it's pretty interesting. I don't really think we had a whole lot revealed from it from what I've seen. I don't know if I'm going to make a video talking about that stuff, but it is just worth noting that this update about the next-gen Switch successor and backwards compatibility lines up with that meeting. And so, again, I know that I'm a few days late to this, and everyone's talked about it, and you already know these details, but like, holy crap. They just confirmed backwards compatibility for the Nintendo Switch 2 or the Switch successor. Like, that's wild. And it's not wild because it's like a surprise. I think that we all had 98% of our brains telling us, yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 almost has to be backwards compatible. It makes too much sense. It makes too much business sense, and it just lines up with how Nintendo tends to do things. The Wii U to Switch transition was different because the medium changed from discs to a cartridge. But if we were to assume the Switch 2 is going to be another hybrid device and would also use cartridges, then of course it made sense to be backwards compatible. But, as sure as we all felt about it, and I talked about it many times, it wasn't really truth. It wasn't a foregone conclusion. We were all just kind of speculating and assuming. But now they just came out of nowhere this current week and said, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's backwards compatible. So it goes without saying that this is pretty great news. I find it to be great news. I think most people find it to be great news. And, part of this is also the fact that NSO is going to be backwards compatible, and our profiles and everything we've downloaded and whatnot is obviously also going to transition to the next generation. Something else that I think was always kind of wrapped into the notion of the Switch 2 as a console, and if the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. I know it's something I had brought up a few times in prior videos when I touched on this topic as well. So if you have physical Switch cartridges, they're going to be able to plug right into the Switch 2, whatever it looks like and does, and we're going to be able to play those games. Awesome. Our NSO profiles, and I guess if you're paying for like Switch Online or the expansion pack, That's going to transfer over. And that, of course, is also going to include downloaded games. So this is a case where Nintendo is finally catching up to how Sony and Microsoft have been doing this for, I think, 2 generations now, where, you know, your Xbox Live profiles and your PSN profiles carried, I want to say this went back to the 7th gen, right? I think 360 and PS3 stuff carried over to the Xbox One and PS4, if I remember right. I should know because I had all these consoles and had profiles transfer over, so I feel like going from 7th to 8th gen, that was true. And then going from Xbox One and PS4 to the current generation, all of that stuff transferred over. I know that's for sure. So finally, we're seeing Nintendo do the same thing. They tend to be a generation or two behind with things like this, and this is really just following suit. But it is great news, and it's especially great news because the Switch, as we know, has just been a juggernaut. It's so popular. It's so successful. 146 million now people have Switches, or at least have been sold. Almost every household who is ever going to want a Nintendo Switch has one. Some of them have maybe even 2 or 3. So this is the generation of all generations to take your entire current infrastructure, physical and digital and online, and all these profiles, and allow them to move to your next generation. Because if you want the Switch 2 to be even half as successful as the current Switch, you need to make that transition super, super smooth. And by making it backwards compatible, that's going to be achieved. Now, before I jump into some speculation about the last kind of major bullet point that they talk about here, which is really huge, we have to also talk about what the backwards compatibility, if I could speak correctly, what it actually means. Because when I think about backwards compatibility going from Switch into Switch 2, before we've seen the Switch 2, the main thing, really the only thing that I think about is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, man. That's all I care about. We've seen this game. It was finally revealed in June earlier this year. We got freaking 42 seconds of gameplay or whatever that comes down to. It was fantastic. It blew our minds. It blew my mind. And so the big question is, okay, well, it's confirmed to be a Switch title, the same way it was announced back in 2017 before the reboot and changing teams back to Retro Studios. It's incredibly gorgeous looking for the current Switch based on that footage, but I think we also know that there's an opportunity for it to look even better on a next-gen console. And so now that we know that the Nintendo Switch 1 cartridge you might buy of Metroid Prime 4 next year will also be able to be plugged into your Nintendo Switch 2 and played, what does that mean for that game? And of course, this really applies to all Switch games. You guys know me. I'm just solely focused on Metroid here because it's all I care about in the world of games right now. And the Switch too, of course. So what does it mean for Metroid Prime 4 or to any other game that you might be yourself curious about? Is this going to be a situation where the Switch 1 cartridge is going to be automatically upgraded in terms of its graphics and its power and what it's going to be able to achieve? Is it going to be something where we'll be able to buy or download a patch that's going to upgrade the Switch 1 cartridge to a next-gen version? Or is there just going to still be a separate definitive version of Metroid Prime 4 sold specific to the Switch 2? So that you can buy a Switch 1 cartridge of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, or you can buy a Switch 2 cartridge that will itself have been designed from the ground up to be a Switch 2 game that will look and play better than the Switch 1 version. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that this has been the big question on my mind for going back probably 3 or so years. I guess 3 or 4 years. Because as crazy as it sounds, I think it was around late 2020, which of course was the year of COVID, that I started thinking like, yeah, maybe there's a Switch Pro out there. You remember the Switch Pro was a hot topic, but again, for those of you following me, you probably remember, while I considered the Switch Pro back in those days, I was also pretty quick to move on from the Switch Pro idea, and I started focusing on the Switch 2. And obviously my prediction of 2022 or 23 has proven to be wrong, but regardless of that, I was already thinking ahead to next gen. I kind of moved beyond the Switch Pro thing for the most part fairly early on, earlier than most people. And so the reason I say that, because obviously my prediction and timing was wrong, but the reason I say that is, you know, back in 2020, 21, 22, since I was already thinking about the Switch 2 just as a concept, that means I was applying a next-gen version of Metroid Prime 4 to my thoughts as well, right? Because Prime 4 was still a mystery, and it was something that was announced in 2017 and rebooted in 2019. So even in the years of 2020, 21, and 22, while I was thinking about Switch 2, I was thinking about how it would affect Metroid Prime 4 because I still knew that was a game being made. And if I'm already thinking ahead to the next generation, of course I'm going to apply it to my most anticipated game. So now we live in a whole new reality compared to the Rob of 2020 and 2021, right? Because now I've seen Metroid Prime 4. I have a title of Metroid Prime 4. I have a target release year of 2025. And now we've got 2 tweets from Nintendo and Furukawa talking about the Switch 2. And we know that the reveal of it is around the corner sometime in the next 4 months of our lives. We're going to see it revealed. 4 to 5 months, we're going to see the thing revealed. And we've just gotten this update this week that it's going to be backwards compatible. And so having backwards compatibility confirmed in a world where we've now seen Metroid Prime 4 and I know its title and I know what it looks like on the current Switch, now my mind gets to really wonder, how do these two things coincide, and what is the next generation playability of Metroid Prime 4 even going to look like? So let's bring it back to this last bullet point and talk about this, because now it's pretty obvious I've been out of the YouTube and video game conversation pretty much this entire week for the last few days. I just haven't been paying attention to any of it. Obviously, I saw this tweet in the news the day that it went out, but I really haven't had a lot of time to focus on it or form strong opinions. So this is really the first time I'm doing it in real time with you guys in this video. So rereading this tweet, I don't know if anyone else has spent any time talking about this. Maybe they have, maybe I haven't, because I haven't heard anyone talk about this stuff this week. But the last thing they say is further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. That's a weird sentence. It's a weird idea. Now, if this tweet didn't include a separate sentence including confirming backwards compatibility, I personally would have interpreted that as a way for them to say that it's going to be backwards compatible without saying it. But they already confirmed backwards compatibility in the first half of this tweet. So it sounds like the idea of the Switch 2 being compatible with the Switch, it feels like it's different than games being backwards compatible. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't know if I'm interpreting this right. And maybe they just phrased it strangely, and it's obviously by default a bit of a translation from Japanese to English. So maybe it's just another way to say backwards compatible. Maybe that's all it is. And so, keep in mind that I might be overthinking this, and I'm aware of this, but I'm going to now go down this train of thought. What does it mean for the Switch 2 to be compatible with the Switch if it's not games being backwards compatible? I don't know. I don't know what that means, but does it mean anything? Does it have to do with controllers or Joy-Cons or new generations of Joy-Cons being some sort of weird current Joy-Cons are compatible with Switch 2 consoles, but maybe also Switch 2 controllers will be reverse compatible with Switch for some sort of weird benefit? So maybe it has something to do with controllers. Maybe there's something totally insane going on where the Switch 2 itself, for some reason that we could never know, has some compatibility with the current Switch. Like the systems, the consoles themselves, the units, talk to each other in a weird way. So there would be some benefit to keeping your current Switch alongside of your Switch 2 for whatever reason. Do I dare pray for some weird dual screen thing to come back? Bring back Wii U and Nintendo DS dual screen gameplay. Dare I dream of that? I don't think it's that. But we have to remember that it's easy for us to think Nintendo is going to play it safe and just make a more powerful Switch. There's nothing fancy. It's just another Switch with Joy-Cons, and it's hybrid. The only difference between the current Switch is that it's going to be a lot more powerful. That's the safe bet, and we all think that that's what Nintendo is doing. But that's not really the Nintendo way. Will goofy Nintendo rear their heads when it comes to revealing the Switch 2? And keep in mind, I want that. I kind of want goofy Nintendo because I fell in love with goofy Nintendo throughout my 44 years of life. So I'm all about Nintendo shocking us with some sort of weird, crazy, off-the-wall gimmick, But they might also be playing it safe, so I don't know. But if we go down the train of thought where goofy, gimmicky strange Nintendo rears their head by the time they reveal the Switch. Maybe there is some sort of Switch 2 will talk to Switch 1, so keep both of your consoles kind of concept as a part of this whole thing. I don't know, man. It's just something to think about, and I read this tweet here again, in real time to you guys in this video. And as I read it out loud to myself, I was like, damn, what does that mean? Information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. I mean, like I said, probably it's just another way to talk about backwards compatible games. But what if there's some weird hardware gimmicky thing? The stuff that we know Nintendo likes to do. Weird controllers, weird console gimmicks, weird UI gimmicks, if it's gamepads, if it's Wii remotes, if it's Wii boards or whatever, the balance board thing, whatever they might be doing. Like, what if there's just something crazier going on? I don't know. So time will tell. We have to wait and see. I think the last thing to kind of end this video on is the timing of the reveal. Like, I feel like the fact that they sent out this tweet this way is a roundabout way to confirm that I don't really think they're going to reveal it before the end of the year. So I'm okay resigning myself to that fact. I'm not somebody who makes declarative statements with stuff that I'm guessing. I very clearly make it obvious that I'm only making guesses and predictions as a fan. Yes, I hear behind the scenes things, and I've heard behind the scenes things, and I've had to keep them fairly close to my vest. But I don't know anything about this stuff. So I've only ever been guessing and predicting with my reveal timing. And I've only been holding out to hope that we were going to still see the Switch 2 revealed in 2024. It wasn't because I believed it. I don't go to Reddit and Fammy boards and all those weird places other people spend their time. I don't do that stuff. So I wanted to believe maybe it could still show up in November or December. But I kind of feel at this point, after reading this tweet and the way it happened this current week, yeah, I feel like it makes me sad, but I feel like we're not going to see the Switch 2 revealed in 2024, guys. Even if there's that small 1% window open for them to do it because Nintendo can do what they want, I think I'm personally moving on from any hope that it's going to happen this year. And at this point, I'm just going to wait to see, after the new year, January or February, maybe they reveal it. I just sure hope the thing doesn't release like in winter holiday next year, a year from now. Like, that's way too long. I know I just made a video about all these good games coming out in 2025, including Metroid Prime 4, but like, I still feel like, even that aside, I think by the middle of the year, this damn thing needs to be out, man. And I'm speaking selfishly, I just want it to be out by then. But we'll see, video games, they're just fun. They're just a hobby. It's not anything that really is all that important to life or anything. It's just nice to know that the Switch 2 is coming, and I think that it would certainly be something fun for us to focus our time and energy on, to just have the freaking next generation of Nintendo release. I want to see what the Switch 2 is, and then I'll be excited to buy and play it. And so I can play this amazing, beautiful next-gen version of Metroid Prime 4. It's like really, really important to me to be able to play Metroid Prime 4, not a year from now, hopefully in the next 6 or so months. So either way, interesting stuff, man. Backwards compatibility confirmed. A lot of information could be gleaned or assumed potentially based on this tweet, which is what I spent 20 minutes blabbing to you guys about today. So hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully we see the Nintendo Switch 2 soon. Again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for tuning in, and that's about it.